The late 19th century witnessed a dramatic shift in naval power within the Western Hemisphere. With the arrival of the Brazilian battleship Riachuelo in 1883, accompanied by the acquisition of other modern European warships by Brazil, Argentina, and Chile, the American fleet suddenly found itself outmatched and vulnerable, even in its own harbors. Alabama Congressman Hillary A. Herbert, chairman of the House Naval Affairs Committee, painted a grim picture of the situation. If all this old navy of ours were drawn up in battle array and confronted by the Riachuelo, it is doubtful whether a single vessel bearing the American flag would get into port. The Naval Advisory Board had recognized the U.S. Navy's inability to challenge major European fleets since 1881. Their best hope was attrition warfare through commerce raiding. While some advocated for a strict commerce raiding approach, others argued its ineffectiveness against potential enemy battleships stationed near American shores. However, building a fleet of warships clashed with the prevailing isolationist policy. This stalemate continued until the arrival of the Riachuelo tipped the scales. Now faced with the real threat of hostile warships off the U.S. coast in 1884, the board began planning for defensive vessels. The planned ships required shallow drafts to fit in major American ports, meaning their hulls needed to sit closer to the surface. They also had to have a minimum speed of 17 knots. Similar to the Riachuelo, both U.S. ships were to be designed for end-on-fire. Secretary of the Navy William Collins Whitney asked Congress to approve two 6,000-ton warships, which were approved in August 1886. A design contest asked naval architects to submit designs for the two ships. The first was for an armored cruiser, which would become the USS Maine. It was specified that her armament should include 4 10-inch guns, 6 6-inch guns, various light weapons, and 4 torpedo tubes. The winning design was submitted by Theodore Wilson, the chief constructor of the Bureau of Construction and Repair, who had designed several other American warships. Although Maine's design was inferior to other submissions, it is believed to have received special consideration due to a requirement that one of the new ships had to be American-designed. The second was for a battleship, which would become the USS Texas. Specifications were similar to the Maine, but demanded 2 12-inch guns, along with thicker armor. British designer William John of England's Barrow Shipbuilding Company submitted the winning design for Texas. The USS Maine's unusually long 9-year construction resulted from limitations with American industry at the time. Several factors caused delays, including a 3-year wait for armored plating and a fire that destroyed the blueprint drawings of the ship. This also coincided with a period of rapid change in naval tactics and technology, leaving Maine's role somewhat undefined. When Maine was first laid down, armored cruisers were envisioned to serve as smaller battleships for overseas operations. These ships were built with heavy belt armor, similar to what Great Britain, France, and Russia possessed. However, within a decade, the role of armored cruisers shifted towards commerce raiding, which demanded fast, long-range vessels with less emphasis on armor protection. Caught between these two roles, Maine wasn't well suited for either. She lacked the firepower and armor to engage enemy battleships and the speeds required for a cruiser. Measuring 324 feet long, with a beam of 57 feet, and a draft of 22 feet and 6 inches, Maine's displacement weighed in at 6,682 long tons. This long and narrow design resembled a cruiser more than wider-beamed battleships. While this theoretically made Maine a fast ship, her unbalanced weight hindered speed. Maine was the first American capital ship to prioritize speed with fighting strength. Her vertical triple-expansion engines, designed under the supervision of future Commodore George Wallace Melville, were a departure from the conventional horizontal placement. Melville believed vertical engines offered greater efficiency, lower maintenance costs, and higher speeds. However, this layout placed some engine components above the waterline, making them vulnerable to enemy fire. Despite this risk, Melville argued that an armored deck could provide sufficient protection. The engines were fueled by 8 single-ended Scotch Marine boilers, producing 9,293 horsepower. During trials, Maine fell short of her contracted speed of 17 knots, and was only able to reach 16.45. Limited coal capacity also reduced her operational range, and due to the overhanging main turrets, coaling at sea was only possible in calm water. Maine's offensive power lay in her 4 10-inch, 30-caliber Mark II guns. These behemoths were housed in twin turrets, one positioned forward and sponsored to starboard, the other aft and sponsored to port. This en echelon layout, a design originating with Italian battleships in the 1870s, was intended to maximize firepower. However, Maine's superstructure restricted the turret's arc of fire, limiting her ability to fire broadside. Boasting a maximum elevation of 15 degrees, these guns could fire a 510-pound shell at 2,000 feet per second. At max elevation, her guns had a range of 20,000 yards. 6 6-inch 30-caliber Mark III guns mounted in casemates within the hull complemented the main battery. These guns fired 105-pound shells to defend against smaller vessels and torpedo boats. Maine also carried 7 57mm Driggs Schroeder 6-pounder guns for dedicated anti-torpedo boat defense. These rapid-fire guns could fire a 6-pound shell at a rate of 20 rounds per minute. But Maine wasn't just limited to surface firepower. She also housed 4 18-inch above-water torpedo tubes, 2 on each side, and was designed with the capability to carry 2 steam-powered torpedo boats, each equipped with a single 14-inch torpedo tube, although only one such boat was ever built. The warship wasn't just about delivering punishment, she was also built to take it. The main waterline belt, constructed from nickel steel, provided a thickness of 12 inches, tapering to 7 inches at its lower edge, safeguarding vital machinery spaces and ammunition magazines. Despite seemingly robust armor, Maine wasn't without vulnerabilities. While the use of nickel steel, a relatively new technology at the time, represented an advancement over traditional steel, the emergence of Harvey steel and Krupp armor in 1893 offered significantly better protection with less weight. This meant that Harvey or Krupp armor could offer twice the protection for the same weight of nickel steel. This technological leap would only be incorporated into future U.S. battleships. The USS Maine was christened on November 18, 1889, amidst hope and celebration. Sponsored by Navy Secretary Benjamin Tracy's granddaughter, Alice Tracy Wilmerding, the warship's launch was lauded by the press. Maine symbolized American ambition and a renewed commitment to naval strength. Newspapers hailed her as a most powerful unit that would bolster the nation's standing on the global stage. Despite the high hopes and praise, Maine's path to active service was fraught with delays. Production issues held up the ship's nickel-steel armor for 3 years. Faced with these setbacks, the Navy secured a second contractor, the newly expanded Homestead Mill of Carnegie, Phipps & Company, which coincided with the infamous Homestead Strike of 1892, one of the largest disputes in U.S. labor history. USS Maine was finally commissioned on September 17, 1895, and joined the North Atlantic Squadron patrolling the East Coast. Captain Arent S. Crowninshield held command until 1897, when Captain Charles Dwight Sigsbee succeeded him on April 10. These years of routine service were a stark contrast to the dramatic events that awaited. In January 1898, tensions rose between the United States and Spain over the ongoing Cuban War of Independence. The Maine was dispatched to Havana Harbor to protect American interests, and arrived on January 25 amidst growing hostility. On February 15, 1898, around 9:40 p.m. local time, a massive explosion ripped through the Maine, tearing apart the forward third of the vessel. At the time, most of the crew was resting in the enlisted quarters near the front of the ship. Of the 355 sailors aboard, 261 were killed. Only 16 of the 94 survivors were uninjured. The cause of the explosion was a subject of intense debate. The two prevailing theories were spontaneous combustion in the coal bunkers or the result of a Spanish attack. Newspapers like the New York Journal employed sensationalist yellow journalism tactics to stoke public outrage with exaggerated and inflammatory reporting. Separate investigations by the United States and Spain were conducted into the cause of the explosion. Spain's 1898 Del Perel and de Salas inquiry found spontaneous combustion of the coal bunker, located adjacent to the munition stores, as the likely cause of the explosion. However, the 1898 Sampson Board, convened by the U.S. Navy, concluded that an external explosion sunk the Maine. The mood in the United States shifted decisively towards intervention in Cuba, with the chant, "Remember the Maine, to hell with Spain," echoing across the country. The United States moved to blockade Cuba on April 21, 1898. 2 days later, Spain declared war on the United States, igniting the Spanish-American War. While the USS Maine's service was tragically short-lived, her destruction became a pivotal moment that propelled the growth of the United States Navy.